Welcome to the A.D.K Rock and Metal channel. My name is Kirk Horton, and today I'm going to be reviewing an album by a Japanese death metal band called Defiled. They're from Tokyo. I think we could consider them veterans. They've been on the Season of Mist record label since 2003, and this is the 8th album of their career. So who are the band members? Well, we've got Sumito Yusuke as the guitar player, and he's been a founder member since the band formed in 1992. Next, we've got Hamada Kaisuke on drums. He's been in the band since 2013. The guitarist and vocalist has also been in the band only since 2013, and that is Hamada Shinichiro. And then we've got the bass player who joined in 2019 called Nakajima Takachika. So I've already given quite a lot of context there just in those opening few sentences to say who they are, where they're from, which album they're up to. What we can really say here is that this is a true metal band, and I'm going to explain what I mean by that. There are no gimmicks here, no Japanese idiosyncrasies, no schizophrenic genre hopping moments, and no extravagant stage costumes associated with that visual key subculture. So a bit like that Japanese avant-garde blackened thrash band Psy, this is a group that would have nothing to do with a lot of that really unusual metalcore meets J-pop meets grindcore meets nu metal type stuff that you hear from Japan, which is quite distinctive and can be enjoyable, but it's really surprisingly quite inward looking and doesn't really contribute much to the evolution of contemporary metal. Although, to be honest, what is happening to the evolution of contemporary metal? What has happened since Periphery and Tesseract entered the scene in the early 2000s? So what we need to be asking here is, as a band that only released an album last year, what have they been doing in that time to be so productive? And did they do the right thing to put another album out only a year later? I know that they've got a tour lined up and they're going to want something to promote. So let's have a look what impact it has on this record. Okay, so this album starts off and you are going to be scratching your head, certainly for the first quarter of it. 14 tracks, 44 minutes, too long. I can say straight away that it already, when I looked at that, I just thought, how am I going to get through this? But I have got to say, this starts in such a brutal way, but at the same time, so left field manner. Track number 1, Smoke and Mirrors. It's basically like homemade grindcore from the front room of a terraced house. You know, those anal cunt records. Imagine that with technical guitar work. So yeah, this is extreme metal that sounds like it's on a shoestring budget with powerful vocals. They've deliberately gone for that sound. So there's nothing wrong with this either. And if you think about it, it takes you back as well to that nostalgic glory era of death grind in the ERA Records chapter of extreme metal circa 1988-1999. The guitars here also capture a chaotic hardcore punk tone, while the drums are really drier than a desert. I like the whammy bar guitar solo that comes from nowhere in this song. Clearly the band have decided to go as raw as possible here rather than the tempting route of overproduction and digital manipulation where the drums sound like typewriters, etc. Track number 2, the title track, Horror Beyond Horror. Longest song on the record, 4 minutes long. Already I'm asking, did they record this album as a demo and decide not to mix or master it? Again, this has its charms because there's so much stagnation in death metal these days. When you actually get something like this, it makes you sit up and it also puts a smirk on your face. So the sliding power chords here hover like asbestos in between like these battered engine drums. They often sound quite blunt as well. Imagine the early death records under the microscope of, say, like Cro-Mags. I mean, Lars Ulrich would be proud of the snare sound of this album if he ever truly liked Saint Anger. And how did they get 4 minutes out of something so abundant in modulations and non-repeating passages? It's a question that will come up throughout the album. Shinichiro Hamada's enunciation is absolutely fantastic. I've got to say, you wouldn't even know he was Japanese. There's no trace of a foreign accent in his words. That shouldn't put you off anyway. Listen to the early Sepultura albums. Again, that can actually give it a charm. But he could front any top tier death metal band, and he's singing and playing at the same time, so it's very impressive. When we move on to track number 3, Syndicate, you can actually hear Sepultura in this song, but with the blast beats of a modern slam band like Sanguisugabog. Listen beneath the blunt drum techniques and you'll hear a maze of technical guitar riffs disguised as noise. Some of the transitions here are so unexpected you wonder if the song has already transitioned into track number 4 when it hasn't, and the guitar amps sound like they've not reached full distortion due to technological constraints, or put it this way, it's like they're using amps from the 1970s. Track number 4, The Alchemy. What I would say here is listen to the choke of the opening guitar chords in chromatic formation. This is a quintessential sound of the 1990s. Indeed, you used to hear this in hardcore as well. And hardcore kids would love parts of this album. Only one criticism though, where is the fucking bass guitar in the mix? I haven't heard it at any point at track number 4. As I've said in a previous review of their last album, this is not a million miles away from the Dillinger Escape Plan in its design and execution. They just don't use as many staccato bludgeoning moments, but the modulations are just as spasmic as the New Jersey Legends. I'm still engaged at track number 5, Demagogue. The question here, how often do the guitars seem to work around the drums rather than the other way around, which is the more orthodox manner, isn't it, of metal music? Defiled appear to have one aim here, to capture the energy of the rehearsal room in their music. This song particularly is a bludgeoning piece of death grind, like a stripped down version of the early Gorguts material. You can hear a group here pushing their capabilities as far as they can, and that's admirable. Track number 6, The Terminal Phase, it's only 2 minutes and 18 seconds. One of the more unusual songs on the album. Death metal as a noise rock jive, I would say, before they reach for the start-stop blast beats. They prefer a grotty guitar tone to a crunchy one on this record. This is basically what Mortician would sound like with more life in their vocals, although you can actually detect jazz chords underneath the distortion in between the palm muting and tremolo rhythms. Voivod are perhaps the nearest meaningful comparison here. Track number 7, Trojan Horse. At this stage, I'd say the album's found its structure as a collection of rough songs under 3 minutes in length. It sounds like this song sounds like it could break out into surf rock at any moment, and maybe that would enhance their music rather than obfuscate it. The prospect of another 7 songs from here does start to weigh on your mind. So when we get to track number 8, Spectrum of Fear, and it starts with "Ew, the Spectrum of Fear" as the intro, you're thinking, okay, it's only 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Are they going to do anything new here? The guitars and drums play against each other rather than in unison. You can appreciate as well the panned guitars in each speaker. These subtleties do help to retain your waning interest at this point. So we're now quite advanced, getting into the second part of the album. Track number 9, The Crook and the Flail. This is where you can appreciate this band have got the expert rhythmic contortions to be bolder in their experimentation. I think this song would be better if it dared to embrace a John's own direction with crazy saxophone solos and freeform bass guitar. The main riff holding it together is actually quite memorable here. It's like a mid-range rotation. The fingerwork's really impressive, like Megadeth spiced with Morbid Angel. Track number 10, Replicator Dynamics. To be honest, this is where they should have ended the album for me, and everyone would be satisfied and satiated by their fix of chaos. The guitars are ugly enough to leave a slight delay behind, like when you turn up the fuzz on your distortion pedal and try to play your instrument in the mindset of somebody in clean mode. Track number 11, Equinox. Why are these songs all of a sudden getting longer? 3 minutes? I know that is not long in any other genre, it is in this. Not many surprises left in store at this point of the listening experience, even if the unhinged complexity is intriguing enough to keep at least 50% of your brain interested. So when we get to track number 12, The Chains, I feel like I'm in fucking chains. If this music wasn't so complex, you'd wonder how many of these songs survived more than a cursory rehearsal before transitioning into the final piece. This is where death metal becomes tedious. To be fair though, Defiled managed to engage the listener longer than most artists in this genre, which is quite impressive for an album of 14 songs, and I'm only saying at track number 12, right, I'm out, I've had enough. Track number 13, Psychopomp, superfluous. I just do not give a shit about this song because I've just switched off and stopped admiring the freeform spirit of the music. I know that sounds harsh, but not for me at this stage. And then track number 14 is called To See Behind the Wall. And you know what I wrote in my notes? I've got no curiosity to see what's behind the wall. Actually, this song is quite interesting. It fades in and then there's some quite schizophrenic modulations. That's a theme that keeps coming up, doesn't it? But it does actually have you on the edge of your seat. So if they'd have put this earlier on in the track listing, I would have had more time for it. By now, everything just sounds the same and I've completely zoned out. So what are my final thoughts on this record then? So I do admire the determination to strip death metal back to a primitive sound while injecting it with a complexity befitting of, say, Tomb Mode or even Gorguts. I don't think this drummer has even heard of triggers. How dry is his snare sound? Sometimes his hits sound quite blunt, like, as I said, Lars Ulrich on Saint Anger. The first half of this record is a death grind treat, with hardcore punk elements slipping in and out at sporadic moments. There's a swagger to this music and the rhythmic mastery is impressive. Few bands could achieve this and it sounds freeform at times. Now let's assess the negatives. The length of the record, 44 minutes, no thanks. I can't think of one death grind record beyond 30 minutes that I've ever enjoyed in my life. There is no need for this album to have 14 songs spread over 44 minutes. You're playing death grind for fuck's sake. 30 minutes is the maximum time you should aim for in this genre. So my levels of disinterest and boredom definitely peaked at track number 10, which isn't that bad considering how early I'll often zone out of a death metal record these days. Let's have a look at the verdict then. I always remind you here there are four levels to our grading. The top level, we would consider you the headliner. The second highest grading, you are the main support. The third highest grading, you are the opener, as in the opening band on a bill. And if we don't like the music, we can't get into it, can't vibe with it, then we would say back to rehearsals. So Defiled are masters at what they do, and their albums would be much better if slimmed down. I also feel that they've earned the right to be more experimental, like Mr. Bungle or Naked City, but they stay in the same lane for most of this LP. Therefore, I would say this album is an opener. They'd be a worthy opening band on the road for any of the great Relapse Records groups of the late 1990s and early 2000s. So go out and download it, stream it, buy it from the Season of Mist website or on the group's Bandcamp page. This album comes out on the 20th of September 2024. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe to the A.D.K Rock and Metal channel. I'll catch you on the next review.